Welcome back to the Box Score Podcast. I'm Conrad, joined by the entire crew: Nick, MJ Tolliver, and Mason. Well, gentlemen, despite all that homework we did, the Celtics decided to say, "Screw all your research, screw all your analytics." This series is 3-0 in favor of Boston, and well, right now Dallas looks pretty overmatched. I don't think so. Well, it's not a matter really of if Boston will close it out, just when, right? So it was a very exciting game three. Dallas had their chances, but they're still in an 0-3 hole. So uh, a lot of the focus has been on, is Tatum doing enough? Is he underperforming? Who's the best player on the team? Who's the X factor? Basically, all these Boston narratives or discussion points. So now that we have a substantial body of work from this series, I think now we can definitively, it's not so much guessing work anymore, but I think we have more data as to make an affirmative pick as to who the NBA Finals MVP will be. So, Nick, why don't you take us off? What have you seen? What popped out? You know,
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a lot of, at least on my sort of view of discourse around the NBA so far, there's been a lot of hate on Jason Tatum and the way he's performing, right? Particularly when it comes to shooting the basketball, right? He's not putting up the statistical numbers that you would want from your franchise player, right? Uh, but I think a lot of that is very unwarranted, right? He's been, in my opinion, by far the most valuable player to them so far in the series, right? Right now, who do they have bringing out the ball? Every single possession, right? It's Jason Tatum, or at least the vast majority. 3 years
yes,
ago, you couldn't say that, right? You wouldn't want him bringing out the ball. He's the one bringing the ball up because he knows that Dallas is going to double team him, right? And so he's able to use his gravity to create other shots. He's averaging a similar assist amount to what he was in the 2022 finals, but the actual level of creation has hit another level or two, right? Um, right now with Jason Tatum on the floor, I think is a very interesting stat that isn't really being passed around as much as it should. When Jason Tatum's on the floor, the Boston Celtics have a 128 offensive rating. Without him, it's a 97. His influence and impacts goes above and beyond anyone else on that team. And it's on both sides of the ball. He does everything for this team. Obviously, again, the shooting numbers aren't quite there. But I feel like he's sacrificing his own shot in a lot of ways to do the better thing for the team, which again you couldn't say about him 2-3 years ago. And I think this is the ideal version of Jason Tatum. This is what you want from Jason Tatum. This is what 2-3 years ago, I keep referring back to it, that 2022 finals run. But this is what Boston fans wanted. This is the version of Tatum that they wanted uh, 3 years ago. And they've gotten it. And I think he needs his credit.
absolutely.
Mason, what do you think?
No, I think this series has definitely been interesting. I wouldn't say there's definitely a definitive, who's been the biggest player for the Boston Celtics. I definitely think this is a team basketball oriented team. I mean, Joe Mazzulla was getting his flowers yesterday, just how this team was, orchestrating. Xavier Tillman, had, some good minutes out there last night. Not saying he's, any case of their best player. But I'm just saying, like, the Boston Celtics from, we have to go Tatum or Brown, Porzingis, whoever's night it is, this team is very deep. And there's nights and there's moments that, players that, have bigger moments. And right now I think that both Tatum and Brown have done their part. even though the shooting numbers might not have shown. Tatum has been very effective. I was just looking at his plus minus, Brown and Tatum's plus minus, and Brown has a plus 213 this playoffs, and Tatum has a plus 427 in this playoffs. So even though, like, there's some huge numbers going on, and I'm some nights I'm a big believer in plus minus, other nights I'm not. But they're having, these guys, these Boston Celtics, they're buying into a system, and they're sacrificing their roles and a lot of times their ego for the betterment of the team. I thought it was funny how Jason Kidd had those comments about who's the best player in the series. I don't think it really bothered them too much. I think they're just really here to win a ring, and I don't think I have a definite answer on who's deserves this Finals MVP yet. But I think Game 4 will be a huge decider, and I'm still on the fence.
Yeah, I mean, it's the shooting splits are bad for Tatum. Let's call it like it is. 35-9 from the floor, 29.6 from three, and then 84.6 from the line. I mean, that's not bad. But I mean, his floor game, which is why we posed the question, the poll on our Twitter account, like, would you say Jason Tatum's performance in the finals is bad or like, decent, good? Because I mean, 21.7 points per game, 8.7 rebounds, 7.3 assists. And literally in all three games, I mean, his floor game has been pretty excellent. It's funny when we say, who do we believe has been the best player or who's the best player on the team? It's a lot different than what the coaches that are coaching to defend them think. Because if you really look at it, and it's magnified too, and I think Boston knew this, given that, as Nick was saying, Tatum is taking the ball up the floor almost, a majority of the possessions, right? The defensive focus is on Tatum, So, I mean, yes, has it made it more difficult for him to, get a clean look off? Absolutely. But, he is making a lot of, really high level reads, and if not second reads, which is why you're seeing like guys like whether it's Brown or White, sneaking like baseline or stuff like that. Or finding guys like on the weak side, that can relocate for a three. He's really, yeah. I mean, it's almost become a little too cliche. Being kind of selfless. And you could be cynical and say everything he's saying, in his press conferences is, he's trying to say the right thing. But I believe there's truth to everything he's saying. I mean, he is truly taking what the defense gives him. And for the most part, he's been pretty successful in slicing up the Mavs defense, for the betterment of the Celtics performance. So, I mean, it's weird. It is, again, this is what we started saying, and irrespective of the finals MVP, like, can you be the best player on the team, the most valuable, but you're not like the best performer on any given night? I mean, that is what a team game is. So, I mean, Michael, I mean, I know you were very adamant that Brown, if Luka is to be considered the best player in this series, Brown was definitively, you said, was definitively the second best over Tatum. I mean, how would you evaluate then, Tatum's performance relative to his to the series and his teammates?
I mean, he's averaging a double, isn't he? At this point,
I mean, close. 8.7 rebounds.
Oh, 8.8 went down. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I see Tatum, like kind of what Nick was saying, like he's bringing the ball up, drawing a double team. But I see him jack a lot of threes, but I'm quite sure that's within the game plan. You know what I mean? To keep the floor spread, to keep everyone else like able to make the shots that they make. Because Derek White's been open like hell, and Drew Holiday's been able to operate whenever he gets the ball. So, I mean, it's some things that you can't see that from the box score. You know what I mean? So, it's still a part of me that's like, well, Brown is doing it on both ends. But hell, it's not like they're dealing with a juggernaut version of Luca. Like he is kind of broken down, even though I have some worries about him anyway, still on the downside anyway. But it's not like he's not somebody that's just been in their way on offense. He is not like he's been too much on defense. Like I seen him get a couple shots on Tatum and kind of fake him out, get in front of him and all of that stuff yesterday. But I kind of a part of me still really does want to say Brown, only because he is two-way. He's been able to help contain Kyrie alongside Derek White. Like, and I just think that, of course, your best defender makes it possible for the rest of the team to be able to defend better. So they have their, like, it's like Tatum affects the offense more, Brown affects the defense more. So at this point, you can kind of flip a coin. You know what I mean? You could just flip a coin and just say, well, heads or tails, and whichever one they choose, that's who gets it. Unless we can have finals MVPs, then I would just give it to both of them. For real. Make them more attached at the hip going forward in the
It's not
future.
CYO, Michael. Come on, man. Not everybody gets a ribbon. Come on, dude. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, well, I'll go with Brown.
Yeah.
That's my pick.
This finals really has been crazy because game one, it was a Porzingis. It felt like a Porzingis finals MVP. And then game two, like, I know it's not going to show too much on the box score, but like Drew Holiday was amazing in game two, like fantastic. And I was like, oh gosh, like that, it's kind of like Holiday kind of affected the game the most out of all of them. And then game three, I'd just say it's a collection of all of them. So I wouldn't say there's yet a huge front runner, but I think if it did come down for the voting, the people who actually do have a vote, I think it would be Brown. So I would agree with Michael. Just if you had to go off the stats. But,
So it's split.
I mean, I feel like for me at least, this you ever see that show Mythbusters?
Where are you going with this?
Because it's like we have all these preconceived notions, right?
Mhm.
Like we had like our preview, our cheat sheet episode. You go in and each game, it's a series of them kind of blowing up. Just dispelling some kind of myth. I mean, so going back, as for pertains to Jaylen Brown, I mean, he has through 3 games probably the signature, what will be the iconic play of this NBA Finals, right? Was where he beats Kyrie off the dribble, a little crossover, and he goes left. Drives the lane for the jam. I mean, that a lot, like the irony, the absolute irony that it was not just that he drove the lane, because I've always been one to question his handle, but I mean, he did it going left. Because I agree. I mean, yeah, I totally agree with everything you said, Mason, about how you'd assess like the breakdown of each game. And like there was a Porzingis, then Drew, who absolutely stood out. But it's what Nick was saying about the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, right? Like who's the player that has the plays that just stand out the most? That one obviously will stand the most, I think, with a lot of fans. Myself, I don't even like the Celtics. But how can you not, right? And then same thing, the other play that stands out the most to me was when Kyrie tried to isolate on the left wing, and he got isolated on an island with by Jaylen Brown, and Jaylen Brown forced him to pick up his dribble, and the ball bounced out, went out of bounds, right? I mean, as Michael was saying, it's the two-way ability, and now like some of the most memorable plays on both ends. I'm associating with Jaylen Brown. I've been a big Drew believer, but I mean, right now, like who do I think will get it? Probably Brown. I think the voters will likely, unless something catastrophic happens in games 4 and maybe game 5, right?
Or possibly game 7.
Oh man, come on, Mason. Come on, Mason.
I mean, like, okay. As we were getting ready for this episode, I really was thinking about it. Like, okay, at some point it's gonna happen. Is it?
Mhm.
Do I believe it's gonna happen this year? No. Let's be real. But like,
It's probably
it
never going to
will.
happen in a finals
Why are we
too.
talking about it, bro?
Yeah. Hey, you know. I know, no. But so yeah, I mean, in going with that, yeah, the whole MythBusters, because there's a number of things, with specifically with Brown, but also MythBuster Joe Mazzulla. Joe Mazzulla's ability, and okay, to be fair, when that 21-point lead went down to 2 points, right? It
No,
didn't look
man.
like he
Yeah.
was spelling any myths, but again, like it's just time, depending how you look at it. Doc Rivers, tenure or his where you rank him as all time as a coach may have gone up or down, probably down, with some of his recent stints. But what I'm trying to get at is, you just have to be able to push the right buttons to connect with your team, to get them to buy in and like to really believe. For Doc, it was Ubuntu, right? Apparently for Missoula, it's showing UFC videos, right? And quoting the Dark Knight, right? The Dark Knight
Yeah,
Rises.
he's the coolest dude, man. He's the coolest dude. Um,
Yeah,
not to
so
cut
I
you off,
mean, he has
um,
exhibited poise under pressure. So I mean, that's what I say. Mythbusters, man.
yeah, I mean, as I was saying, Missoula is the coolest dude, right? I saw this story the other day. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but I thought I'd share it. Now we got time. So Missoula, right? He was coaching at a D2 school, and he got his offer, his big break. The once in a lifetime opportunity to come and coach the Celtics as an assistant coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he turned down the offer of his dreams, of his boyhood team that he's from Boston, right? To return to the D2 school because he promised a recruit that he would be the coach that next season. And so he stayed back for an extra year, and the Boston Celtics respected him so much for that they offered him a contract the next year as well. Like, he's just a cool dude. I had to share that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great anecdote, but it seems to be in keeping with the stories you hear. Yeah, of why I think even when, let's be real, people like us, people like me make fun of him and mock his coaching ability, that it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we think. We're just giving opinions, right? The only people's opinions that really matter for him are his players, right? And they buy in, right? He can galvanize them, and I've been impressed because I didn't know. I have bought into the fact, like, okay, I mean, it's a great team. This doesn't go well. He could easily be replaced, but I mean, again, he's really proved me wrong. So obviously the job's not done, but it's definitely looking good. So
Yeah, I mean, I think Missoula is the perfect testament to the fact that at this level, at the top two levels, right, college and NBA, the ability to, understand and incorporate X's and O's, right, really aren't all that important as a head coach, as a lead guy. They're important as an assistant coach to be able to get that chance. But once you're actually there, it's not that important. You're dealing with the best players in the world, right? The important thing is, there's only so far you can take them. Being an amazing coach can only take them that much further. The important thing is getting them to buy in, having that connection with your players. And I think we can all agree, Joe Mazzulla is not a top 5, maybe not even a top 10 coach in the NBA right now, right?
probably
Maybe
at
not even top
best top
15.
10. At best top 10, I'd say.
At very best,
Personally,
right? But when you think about what he's done with this core and the way he's gotten more to buy in, right? In the amount of egos on this team and the fact that everyone is still sacrificing, I think that just says something more than anything to Joe Mazzulla. He needs his props here because he's just done a fantastic job with this squad.
Yep. But well, okay. Just if it still relates into the whole what would have been final MVP discussion. One guy who did not bust any of my myths was Kristaps Porzingis. Right, I'm not trying to kick a guy when he's down. All I was like from our last episode, I still stand by what I said, and it's not to disparage him. Is that I believe for the Celtics, he has been their floor or their ceiling raiser, not their floor raiser. They had a high floor already with or without him. And like you said, like game one, the game completely blew open the second he checked in. I mean, that is how electric and dynamic that Celtics team can be. And the fact that they've essentially played 1 1/4 of a game without him. I mean, it wasn't very effective in the remainder of game 2. But that's not to disparage him, but more to really just illuminate and emphasize, how effective the synergy is between actually they like to say the 2 J's, but there's 3 J's, right? Jalen, Jason, and Drew. Because they have been able, it's been, a seamless transition, of balance, of ball handling, playmaking between the 3 of them. So, yeah, it's still very interesting as to how and when each guy is kind of step up and make their mark, from possession to possession.
Mm-hmm.
So.
The Milwaukee Bucks have to feel like the dumbest organization in the history in the land right now. Because if they had this version of Drew Holiday with Chris Middleton and the rest of that team, and them having the familiarity with one another, the continuity that they had built, they would have beaten the Pacers. You know what I mean? Because Drew is one of the players that steps up when he needs to and steps up when you least expect it. You know what I mean? Because if I tell you Drew's gonna drop 25 tomorrow, you're like, how? But when you least expect him to do it, you know what I mean? He drops 26. You know what I mean? Because when he was a Buck, I didn't look at Drew like, all right, give me 22 a game or give me 20 a game. I didn't look at him in that manner. Or maybe it's just me. You know what I mean? But I didn't look at him like, yeah, I need you to run the score up. Because who would you prefer? A Drew Holiday type player that can actually facilitate, that can play defense, even against some of the bigs, like the smaller bigs, he can body up on them. And then would you prefer him or would you prefer just Dame Lillard? You know what I mean? For that Bucks team in particular, would you prefer Dame? Okay, so if we swapped out Dame with Drew for this Boston team, is Boston still, you know what I mean? I mean, they're probably still in the finals, but would they still have the same type of defensive ability? You know what I mean? To just shut down teams. So yeah, it's a huge difference.
You're talking about them regretting that trade. I don't think they regret that trade at all, right? I mean, the impacts that Drew had, we thought we understood how significant they were before they traded him, right? We had no idea until after the trade, and we realized just how significant a piece of their defense he was, right? They went from one of the best defenses in the league every year to one of the, in the bottom half of the league and the second worst transition defense in the league without him. But at the same time, I mean, you're talking about it. Yeah, I mean, if they had Drew Holiday, they probably would have gone past the Pacers. But then what?
There's probably 9 teams that get past the Pacers.
I mean, it's not. In my opinion, the Pacers were the weakest team in the Eastern Conference playoffs. In my opinion, right?
They were probably the weakest team after the first round. Somehow they managed to get through, but well, that's another topic. But yeah.
But I'll just say, I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, right? You work with the information that you're given at the time, or that's presented to you at the time. Mm-hmm. But some people do have to have a level of foresight, and in this case, That would be squarely on Brad Stevens. Make no mistake, Nico Harrison, this is still a very successful performance on his job. Obviously, like if they do not come back from 0-3 to win, this is not like to say that like his plan or his formula was a failure. No, it's just there are other things that they need to continue to build around, right? Maybe they're just whatever, right? They're a year too early. But for Brad Stevens, like I said, he understood regardless of that's again, you're talking, Michael, to me, that's more talking upside. That is not what they needed. They needed a different kind of floor. And that is what Drew provided, right? That stabilizing force. That is something I think he already knew at the time of the trade, right? The fact that you got the best offensive version of him, that's just the icing on the cake, right? So, I mean, between that, Porzingis, and I think, Nick, I mean, you could refresh us, right? You had, like, I believe the combined trade of what went in and out to net Porzingis and Drew, right? I think you tweeted out something about that. I mean, in hindsight, you look at it. Go ahead. Yeah, go for it.
So it was Porzingis in the Celtics, right? Porzingis, 2 first-round picks, Drew Holiday, and in exchange they sent out Marcus Smart and a second-round pick.
Did you hear that, man? They ended up with 2 first-round picks. You know, you could have like sent out the 2, and it's still a fantastic trade, right? Even at the time or in hindsight. All I'm saying is, yeah, see, there you go. There you go. I mean, when you're a win, everybody seems to get their flowers, but it's just you look at it in hindsight, you know, you look at the entire body of work. I mean, there was a definitive plan that they stuck to, and they're 1 game away from being rewarded for it, you know? So for their fortitude.
Where do you rank this kind of going back to the offseason, right? How do you think that compares all time to some other great off seasons, right? Because at least in my time as an NBA fan, I can't remember another off season to that level, right? I mean, obviously I've seen, you know, KD and Kyrie go to the Nets and Paul George and Kawhi go to the Clippers, right?
Gasol and Kobe is up there. That was immediate, but
yeah, if you mean, if you mean like an off-season trade that completely turned.
Just a general off-season as a whole.
Well, I mean, because I would have to say, keeping with the Celtics, I think the 2007 offseason, right, where they were able to trade for Ray Allen and sign and trade for Kevin Garnett, you know, and then they literally went. That's what I'm saying, right? And it's this Celtics team was already good last year, right? But what I'm saying is now we could say, like, you know, the trades and the signings they made, Brad Stevens made, the Celtics made, have like directly led to them back to the finals, right? That's kind of how I look at what Danny Ainge did back in 2007, right? Like all those moves he made directly put them back in title contention. So that's why I do think that it's not as big as the Garnett Ray Allen year, but like it's up there in terms of like, man, like this really, you know, puts you back as a legitimate contender. So, you know.
Yeah, the Celtics in 2008, like, I mean, it was a franchise that was struggling. Like, not like struggling, but like historical wise, like there was nowhere near it. Like this team, like Tatum, Brown, and some other guys, they sniffed the finals in 2021.
2022.
So, yeah, 2022. So, my bad, but yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, this is probably the best, like, in terms of a job I've seen, building out a team and finding pieces, you know, around the league, and you know, one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? I mean, 2-3 years ago, the Spurs were shopping Derek White, right?
Yeah,
I think what was the deal? It was something along the lines of a couple of second round picks.
Romeo Langford.
Right. They picked up Chris Porzingis. He was at such a
Show some respect, Nick. Come on.
he was almost an all-star, but somehow he was at such a low point in his value that they gained 2 first-round picks for trading for him, right?
Yes.
Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they weren't their own first-round picks. They didn't tank for those guys, right? That's more resourcefulness. Every single aspect of this team has been built by smart moves from the front office, making the right choices at the right time in the right place. And I think, he's got his props. He's won his executive of the year, right?
Yeah.
But the job that Brad Stevens has done and the rest of I'm not sure who was there before him, right? But I mean, just in general, the Boston front office, in the last decade has been nothing short of remarkable, right?
Danny Ainge, Trader Danny.
Right. And
Yeah.
even the names they've had in there, right? Like on top of all that they've built, you forget that they've also had Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, right? There's another all-star caliber guy on those teams. It's escaping me. Like they've had this sustained growth, and they've just gotten better and better and better, right?
Absolutely.
Without ever bottoming out, without ever having to sacrifice anything. Yeah, you said lead here. My voice is about.
No, you're good. You're good. Well, we'll definitely reconvene after Game 4, but we'll wrap it up today with just a quick. Again, there's only one more question to ask now. Is this a sweep, or are they at least going at 5 games? Let's just end the episode there with a little. Okay, Nick is very adamant that it's a sweep. Michael,
it's a sweep.
It's the sweep. Unless Luka turns into, I can't even think of a player that had his caliber of offense that also could bring it on the defensive end, or unless he starts to put more energy on the defensive end. I don't see it. It's a sweep. And I know people have been coming at me like, "Oh, Mavs in 6." People have been already getting at me about that. So
Mason,
yeah, Celtics in 6.
See, this is what I'm saying. I was about to say, I vote. We don't let Mason vote.
Yeah. Okay. So Celtics in 6, because I think Mavs should have won Game 3. I think there was the last.
They didn't.
I know, but the first quarter, Luka basically there's 11-point swing. Like Luka takes a bad shot, doesn't get back on defense. They let up a 3. Luka hooks up another bad 3, doesn't get back on defense. Tatum gets a dunk. Huge swing right there, then fouls out. I think the Mavericks should have won this game, and I think they're gonna win Game 4, and I think they're gonna shock people with Game 5, and it's gonna be like a fake comeback, and then Boston's gonna win in 6 in Dallas. So
don't.
Mm-hmm.
Why, Mason? Why?
I'm a little more simplistic. I believe in closing out on your own home floor, so I will say Boston in 5, right? And they can eat clam chowder together and everything, and whatever the
Mavs went on like a 22-2 run at one point in the fourth quarter. Like it was bad.
What?
So the Mavericks
went on clam chowder is?
No, man, that's an American thing. I have no idea what that shit is.
It's like soup with clam in it. Okay, well here we go.
No, let Mason get that off real quick. What were you saying, Mason?
No, I'm just gonna say like the Mavericks, like they were on a 22-4 run. I'm saying like the momentum definitely is Dallas, but like the locker room for the Mavericks, they got to be pissed. Like Luka played a bad game, like a bad defensive game. Like he made a lot of defensive mistakes that like should not have happened at all. And I think there's going to be a huge bounce back. I think they're going to kill Celtics, or not kill them, but they're going to kind of stick them. Game 4, Boston's going to be on their heels. Game 5 in Boston, I think Luka's going to have a good game. If Kyrie pulls out or does slightly better in the first 2 games, I think they win that game. But I think Boston still has it. But also Porzingis is out. Porzingis is probably not going to play Game 4. The way they played, last night, I think that they're going to maybe keep him off. So I'm just saying, I do think that the Celtics are going to win, but I do think this Mavericks team still has a little bit of fire left. I don't think they haven't given up yet, which I just got to state it.
Good. For us fans, that is a good thing.
Yeah.
So, Well, thank you everyone for joining us. You can find us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and please really enjoy everybody has now started to tune into our YouTube channel more often. So please leave us a like, subscribe, and
Subscribe.
we will, yes, please subscribe. We love interacting with you all. So until the next episode, take care.
Take care.